G'day, I'm Matthew Mason-Cox, President of the New South Wales Legislative Council. In this edition of our Immortals video series, we're taking a closer look at Sir John Lackey, who was the Council's President some 130 years before me. Sir John was born in 1830 and is just one of two of our Immortals born to a convict parent. A lifelong public servant, he was a Member of Parliament for almost 43 years across both the upper and lower houses. For 11 of those years, he served as President, taking the reins upon the death of his predecessor, Sir John Hay, who was the Council's longest-serving President and the focus of an earlier video in this series. The careers of these two gentlemen were somewhat intertwined. Sir John won his second stint in the Parliament as Lower House Member for Central Cumberland in an election triggered by Hay's resignation from that seat in order to join the Council. Some years later, with the men working side by side in the upper house, Sir John was actually the member responsible for presenting Hay's marble bust to the Parliament, while Hay was still in the President's chair. At the time, Sir John commended the fine work of the sculptor Achille Simonetti. Little did he know that during his own presidency, he would find himself with his own marble likeness crafted by the very same master sculptor. Achille Simonetti was in fact responsible for the creation of 4 of our Immortals, as well as the busts of William Charles Wentworth and former Premier Sir John Robertson, which reside elsewhere in the Parliament today. As with his predecessor, Sir John is depicted in presidential robes and his knighthood medallion hangs around his neck. Both he and President Hay were members of the Order of St. Michael and St. George and are the only 2 busts in the Parliament to express their honours in such a way. In life, Sir John was focused on serving the public. As a young man, he worked as a toll collector on the Lansdowne Bridge before being appointed a local magistrate in his early 20s. After his election to the Assembly, he became a well-respected member of that House. He worked under the Parkes and Robertson administrations, most notably as Secretary for Public Works. He was responsible for encouraging growth of the railways and for connecting Nepean Water to Sydney. He was also involved in the early stages of what would become the iconic Harbour Bridge, being part of the initial push for a truss bridge connecting the North Shore to Sydney. In his private life, Sir John was a successful and knowledgeable racehorse breeder and wrote extensively on the subject. When the opportunity arose, he was closely involved in the development of the Randwick Racecourse and was a renowned figure in early years of racing there. A racing traditionalist, he publicly decried the growing influence of bookmakers over the sport. In the Assembly, Sir John developed a reputation for impartiality as a chair of committees. He was also known as one of the few members of his time who had never been called to order thanks to his calmness and his courtesy. After he was appointed to the Council in 1885, his good reputation followed him, and subsequently he was made President in 1892. Here he would preside over the House through the Federation of Australia. Another unique slice of history owned by Sir John is that he was the only person to simultaneously hold office as President of the Council while carrying out the duties of Governor of New South Wales, if only for a matter of days. This came about on 2 separate occasions during the late 1890s, when both the Governor and Lieutenant Governor were away on official business, and Sir John was commissioned to act in the role as Deputy Governor. Sir John retired as President in 1903 due to failing health. Just a few years after his bust was unveiled, he remained a member of the Council until he passed away later that same year, leaving his marble likeness as a reminder of his calm presence and his measured words in the chamber, which were always taken with great respect by his fellow members.